Hey, Riyadh.
Hello.
So let's pretend I know nothing about Codex or very little, and I'm wondering how to get started with Codex, how to set up kind of the first steps, what to look out for. So, can you walk me through it and explain to me what the best approach would be?
Yeah, of course. Sounds exciting. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, let's assume you don't know anything about Codex and you're just starting out. So I
I
assume
just
the
know it's
first thing,
super cool.
of course. So the first thing you would want to do is set up a new project. Let's assume. So of course I have a bunch of projects here, and so on. But assume you don't have a project yet, so you can in the onboarding you would be guided through this, but let's assume we skip that. You can still add a project, and then what should be the project name? Let's say Curious Expedition, right?
Yeah, let's steal your games.
Yeah, okay, it's a good game. Let's say Curious Expedition 3, just to make it exciting. Um,
This is like
all
spoiling
right.
something that we should or shouldn't know.
No, it's just an example. So from here you can choose a template. Of course, the template will not be super fitting to exactly what you're doing, but it can serve as a inspiration. But let's just start without a template. So I've selected this here, and I'm just not choosing any of these, and I will create a project. Obviously, I would recommend creating a project just for reference, but we created a space here. Let's collapse the stuff here. So we have Curious Expedition 3 at the top. We just have one default space. It's empty. Generally, so the projects are split into spaces, and those spaces contain decks. And the decks are where your cards live, is your backlog, and the spaces help you differentiate between different types of decks. It's pretty flexible, but there are a couple of best practices that we like to give, and the idea is to have at least two spaces. One is a GDD type space, and another one is a work area space. So let's start with work areas first. So tasks. In this space, we should add all the decks that represent work areas. So what do you think? What would be good work area for our team here?
Let's say like art and code and marketing.
All right. Let's add code. We have a couple of default or pre-made images for you. Let's use this one. Looks codey. Code art. This one's a nice one. And marketing, you said. The three pillars of game dev we have here. Uh, maybe game design would not be bad as well. Well, what's a good image for game design? Let's use this one. All right. So of course, this is highly dependent on the team and how you want to split up your team. But this is a good start. This is where we would collect the cards for coding. So just to give an example, here is a card for implement main menu, for example. So this would be a type of card. We have chosen decks here, so that's all good. We have chosen a couple of images. I think that's a good start, right? We have a couple nice images. Always nice to have add images to the decks. You can also add your own images here. We can show that in another section. So now that we have created the tasks, what we want to do next is create the GDD space, which will be containing the scope of the game. Again, the scope or how you want to define the scope of the game depends very strongly on the idea on the game itself. So here we want to add a couple of decks. And how I like to think about it is, what are the entity types or kind of the things the player will encounter in the game? So for example, for a game, for roguelike, where you explore the world, what will you find? You will have characters. Let's start there. You will have characters that are, let's say, you will have explorers. These are the player avatars that you can choose at the start of a campaign in the game. Let's use, I don't know, let's use this one. What else? You would find enemies, I think. Let's use a calendar as a good icon for an enemy. No, we can actually use custom images here. So I have, let me check my asset folder. I have one cool image here. Ah, that's cool. Okay, so that's a deck icon for an image. And then
Fits
what
way
else? Yes, it's more fun if you customize it like that. Let's say, of course, you will have items that you will find. Let's add an icon here as well. Does that work? Yes. Okay. And so you would continue like this. What helps here is also think about kind of the asset types of which you will have many. So in the game, we want the player to be able to choose from different explorers. So every time they play the game, it feels different. So we will probably have at least 10 explorers or so. So it's a good indication for a category of things we want to track here. So explorers. Same goes for enemies. There will be probably 30 enemies. Items, maybe 100. Those could be fairly cheap, I would assume, and so on. And we would continue from here. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
Okay, so what else? So let's fill this up with concrete examples. What is a explorer that we want to have? So the first thing we want to make sure is, here in the deck, we can select the deck type, and we can tell it what type of deck this one should be. So this one, we want to represent a entity or a asset in the game. So I'm going to use this one, this choice here.
What's the difference between the other ones?
The other ones, so the selection will reside in a couple of good defaults. For example, the view filter that's enabled by default, how big the items are, and will also change the type of cards that will be created by default. So let me just go through this. So I will also want to have this one as oops, wrong button. No, that's like a spoiler for a future episode. This one is also a asset. We can do the same here. I already mentioned this one should be a task deck. We'll give it like a small icon here, similar to the asset decks. So we'll give this crown icon here. Let's continue, just making sure we get all of them. Okay. In this case, since we told the Codecks that this should be a asset deck, any card that I will be creating in here becomes automatically what we call a hero card. It's a golden card which can contain subcards. So let's say we want to have a explorer, and let's say what's a good explorer? Maybe a famous person from history, like Jules Verne. Is that how you write his name? I hope you do. Yeah. Of course, it was just a test. So I can save this, and you see it's a golden card. It says 0 subcards, which means it's ready to go for us to add subcards to it. Let's add second explorer. Obviously, okay, Joubert, he lived in the 20th century. Let's add another famous person from history, like Ada Lovelace.
Nice.
I hope I got the name right. It's the first programmer. So now we have two characters here. And this is pretty cool in general. As we build out the game in Codex, what will happen is that the shape of the game, kind of the game model, will start to emerge in our project setup. And I feel this is really, really a cool feature that works differently than in other tools often. I feel in a lot of tools you drown in a sea of tickets, kind of. You're moving around all of these tickets, but if somebody would ask you, but what's actually the state of this enemy, or how far along are we with, how many explorers will we have in the game? It would be kind of hard to answer. So for us in Codex, we want to make sure that we build from the game's shape or the game content or game scope backwards. That's what I'm doing here. So I added now 2 explorers. We would be adding more over time, but let's say we want to focus on Jouvin. And how would we go about implementing Jouvin to the game? So let's create a couple of subcards here. So the first thing would be, I guess we need like a character model, like somebody needs to create that. And we want to create that in the art deck. And then another thing is, which work areas did we actually create here? Marketing, art, code, game design. Okay, let's create a game design card for him. Character balancing. Again, I will use game design. Great. And now you can see I have a hero card here with 2 subcards. I can see also by this progress bar at the bottom, they are both undone, surprisingly. I can sort this by different categories, so I can just have it like menu sorted, so I can play around with the order here manually. I can change by priority and so on. Pretty unexciting because there's no priority set at the moment. But let's say I'm going to sort it by deck. And then I can already tell, oh, I have 1 art task and 1 game design task here. And the cool thing now is, let's close this and go into our art deck, for example. Well, the card is here. So you see, I can open this. I will see at the top, oh, it belongs to this Jules Verne character. And the art task is this one. And same if I go into game design, I will find this card here. You will also notice that this way this is displayed is slightly different. Here it's using a table mode. Can enable and disable it here. But generally, since we use this task card setting for this deck, it defaulted to using a table mode, which is more convenient if you're dealing with like thousands of decks cards over time in a single deck. But yeah, that's a quick setup. You can also, just to wrap this up, to show the other way around. Let's say, what else do we want for a character that could be a game design task? Let's say, write background story. Usually this would be a writer's task, but let's say we have a small team. We have to wear a lot of hats. And now I want to say, well, don't just write any background story, write one specifically about Jules Verne. So I can jump into this thing here, the list again, and select the hero card from here. And now it's attached again. So in this case, I showed kind of the other way of working, creating a task first and then attaching it to a hero card, or going to a hero card and attaching a sub card and so on. Not all the cards will need to be associated or attached together or bound together like this, but generally, if most of your cards, I feel, should, because then this way will make sure as you build out your game, Codex will the model of the or the understanding of the game instead of Codex will get better and better over time. And at any point when you have to make those hard decisions about scoping down or cutting features and so on, having a good setup in Codex will give you a good way or leverage to do that.
That makes sense. So basically, I see all the assets in the GDD section, and then once I hop into the task section, I see exactly what everybody needs to do based on each asset.
Exactly, yeah. So if I'm a game designer and I open the app in the morning, I can just jump in here and find all my game design tasks, independent to which asset they actually belong to. If I'm a producer maybe and I need like a bigger picture. I'm not interested in every specific task, but I'm more thinking about, well, can we ship this character for the next demo and so on? I can just go here and see an overview of all the of all the characters in the game and so on. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, how I like to explain it.
Nice. And so let's say there's like dozens of these cards. Like, how do I assign them, give them properties, ownership, and so forth?
Yep, good question. So when I open a card here, there's not much text here. I could add, for example, let's say character balancing. Let's say there is a tool that we have. Now I can open this checklist here, or this quick view here, by using /. And let's say I want to have a checklist and make sure add to inventory table and find icon graphic, etc. So I can add a lot of text here and so on. Beyond that, the card itself has various properties. So I can open this properties panel to access them all. I can also, the cool kids use these shortcuts here, of course. So first thing, for example, is I can click on effort and it will ask me to enter effort. So let's say effort 3. Can click on priority and this is high priority. Can click here in the center and then it will ask me I will assign it to myself. And so now we've given the card a couple of basic properties.
How do I understand the effort? What's the best practice of what I assign the number to?
So that's a very loaded question. People feel very strongly about the effort estimates. We leave it up to the users to decide what effort means. But if you are curious about what we're using, well, you already know. But like if people are curious, we use 1 effort point corresponds to around 2 hours of work, and then we calculate with 3 effort per day. So because 2 hours per day is kind of spent on meetings and talking and so on. So this 3 points here would mean I'm planning for this to be a full day of work for myself. And now, so let's say, this is a full day of work. I want to work on this today. So I can click on this icon, which is the hand. I can see my hand currently is empty. It has 7 slots. I'm going to add it to my hand. And now when I go to my hand, it's right there. So this is how I like to work. Is basically when I'm in the backlog, I'm picking my cards here. I'm thinking like, I should do this one and that one and should do this art task. I fill my hand, stack my hand, and then during the day, I just hang out mostly here and I just work through my task here without constantly having to jump into like the deep end of the whole project and so on. for me, this is a nice way of working because it fights also kind of like decision paralysis. I can just have my short list for the day, kind of like when you're in an RPG game and you just have your short list of the most important items that you want to use.
Nice. And can I see like the hands of other people? How can I understand like what people are working on at the moment?
Yeah, if you're extra Snoopy and you wanna see what everybody else is working on, you can open the team hands, and you can also customize that and modify whose hand you want to see, and then you can see their hand. And so you can customize, change the order here. I won't do that because people get upset if I do that. But if you're working with people that are not super tightly integrated into your process, generally that's a good idea. For example, when we are working with musicians for our games, they might not be, they don't show up daily for the planning and so on, but they're on a limited time budget. So for them, I like to edit their hand very specifically, kind of do micromanaging, which makes their life easier and mine as well. So Codecks has that flexibility that you can, your team can be very self-managed and self-organized, but it also gives you the ability to give people the cards and the specific order in which they should be working on a task next.
Nice.
So for people that want to follow along, I would say create a new project and think about the entities that you will have in your game. Create a deck for each entity, and then think about the work areas that you will have in your team and create a deck for each of these, and split these two up into two different spaces. It's just easier to manage, to organize that way. And then once you have those entity decks for the different character types or player-facing assets, as I like to call them, just add a couple of them. Add a couple of items, add a couple of enemies, add a couple of levels, puzzles, racetracks, whatever the game it is that you're working on. Add a couple of tasks associated with those work areas. And over time, what you will notice emerge is kind of a understanding of the pipelines in your game. Kind of what are the tasks necessary to create a explorer, because spoiler, it tends to be the same stuff. So once you figure out kind of how to create one explorer, it will give you a idea what steps are required to do the next explorer. And wouldn't it be cool if a tool would really kind of allow you to template that knowledge kind of as a pipeline? That would be really a cool feature. So let's see in the next video if we have something like that.
Not to spoil anything, but yeah, follow along and we'll talk about that in the next video.